For the presentation last Monday, the 7th October, I used the Sandbox as venue, as this was the only chance to res a presentation. I welcomed the idea as it gave me the chance to experiment a little. I decided against rezzing any chairs in order to find out if this space made any difference to people compared with the comfortable seating arrangements in our weekly course sessions. This week's topic was to explore the use of space in virtual worlds, so this is the topic of my presentation. I've been reflecting for quite a while and questioned what makes virtual learning so specific compared with traditional physical learning spaces. Is there any difference? In virtual worlds, any learning arrangement can be provided according to students' needs, subjects taught, or preferences. And this is also possible in traditional physical learning environments, but not without great efforts. In virtual worlds, everything is possible, and the environment can quickly be changed at any time and how often do you wish to do this. I find this exciting that you can set up a learning space with your own ideas of what the environment should look like, provided you have got your own premises to do so and are not restricted to certain spaces given to you, already set up and ready to use without being able to res new items. In her article on traditional learning spaces in virtual worlds, Chris Collins, or maybe better known as Fleep, shares some questions she often hears at conferences, which I have often asked myself too. Why create a classroom with desks and PowerPoint presentations in a world where anything is possible? Why create buildings with roofs and walls in a place where it never rains or gets cold? Interesting questions, and I suppose we could all add a few more, like, for example, why do people have to sit around tables in seminar rooms? Some time ago, I had a discussion with a colleague who insisted that I should sit down at a table, which I didn't want to, as I felt quite comfortable where I was standing. She argued that I could not participate properly in the discussion as I could not pay enough attention to what was being said if I didn't sit at the table as all the others did. In a traditional physical environment, it might be considered as rude or impolite if somebody just stood in the corner. It makes this person look excluded from the group, and it might disturb the facilitator, thinking that this person didn't like the session or is annoyed about something or what have you. With regards to my colleague, my first thoughts and arguments were that I'm not in the real world and could do what I wanted to do in this environment, while sitting safe at my computer in my home office, typing, reading, speaking, listening. So why not hang on the wall, sit on the roof, stand in the corner during the session if I wanted to? I soon realized that real-life conventions and behavior are often transferred to virtual life and behavior. If you remember last week when we listened to Martin's presentation, he asked us to take a seat and we all did. In our weekly sessions, we sit in a cozy, comfortably furnished room with Schrödinger, the cat, in the middle. I attended a conference at the Virtual Ability Island in Second Life the other week. When I returned to the conference area after a break, standing in the background where I was able to give my full attention to the speaker and the slides, the organizer addressed me in a very polite way, asking me to come in and take a seat. It is remarkable that in virtual worlds the same patterns seem to be applied to as in real life. The group, community, speaker or facilitator feel uncomfortable if people stand at the side, as they appear to be either excluded, not interested, bored, frustrated or unhappy. Different behavior, like sitting in the corner or hanging on the wall, is only respected if regarded as due to internet problems, lag, not being able to move. It is interesting to observe that we enter virtual worlds with norms and habits we transfer from our real life and replicate our real life worlds or dreams into virtual worlds. Kamimo Island is a good example. It was produced by a Swedish-Norwegian team, adding the Swedish touch to it with the typical red-colored wooden houses you find lots of in Sweden. People feel good about it, as they say. It feels like home. This island was actually created for language teaching and is regularly used for English business classes. Another example is AVALON Island, where we find replica of a typical old English village. This is actually where my home is, in the far left end of the picture, but I'll come back to this later. Other samples are places with a touristic touch, places we dream of or make our holidays at, like beaches with palm trees. We experienced that with Martin last week. He provided us with a nice seating arrangement, an lecture style and professional screens with his presentation. And while Martin was standing in front of the screen and everything looked relaxed with the beach and the palm trees and the sound of waves, it was fantastic. Like in the physical world, places in virtual worlds follow their specific rules and regulations. When you visit Berlin of the 20s, there is a dress code. You have to wear the specific clothes of this time, and if you don't, you will be banned. And other places provide a few basic common sense rules that apply to most public venues, regions in Second Life. In the Aero Pines Park and Recreation area, I found a list of rules and regulations. Visitors are informed that Aero Pines Park owners are not tolerant of bad manners, aggression, foul mouths, or mass spam-friending group invites towards our guests. No nudity, no weapons, no begging, no group recruiting, no mass friending, no biting. Actually, I've never been bitten, but I have been shot, bombed, and exploded. These rules and places demonstrate that you cannot do whatever you like doing, and that you have to follow certain rules, like in real life. Another interesting phenomenon for me was to read about private areas. I had naively assumed that you can go anywhere, look anywhere, take pictures anywhere, and be happy in the worlds of open opportunities, until I learned that you cannot just walk into somebody's house without permission. I've noticed similar notions in places I visited in my homeland, that people felt intruded by visitors who entered their place. Again, this is something you don't do in real life just to walk into somebody's house. Hence, the openness of spaces in virtual worlds suddenly becomes restricted. In his literature review, The Effects of Virtual Space on Learning, Olle Skuld points out, quote, "Even virtual spaces where the user is given a great degree of freedom to create objects, travel, and interact are in some sense pre-shaped." In his view, software engineering and design are activities that chisel social norms and values into virtual space and thus affect the individual user, user communities, and modes of communication that are available to them. He cited Taylor, 2003. There are places where you find people who are extremely generous and open for public use of their places. One of them I wish to mention here is Barbara McQueen in real life and Barbara Novelli in Second Life. Due to her generosity, my colleagues and I can enter her house anytime to film, to look around, or just to relax. This is magic. Her house is a fantastic sample of a modern house reflecting a certain standard of living. It shows the precise images of life at middle to upper class living standards in the States, I think. The details put into the rooms as regards to seating arrangements, kitchen facilities, bedroom and what have you are amazing. The bowl of fruit in the living room, the snacks on the dining table, the papers and information brochures draped around on the sideboards. It's just incredible. Barbara teaches her students in this place. The students mill around the house. They pick up literature, newspapers or magazines with different information from the sideboards or tables. And together with her students, Barbara often watches movies in a very relaxed atmosphere, and her students love it. So everything looks really neat and tidy here, not messed up like my office at the moment. As teachers, teacher trainers or facilitators, we wish to set an environment that helps the learners or students to achieve their goals in the most effective way. Hence, we look for different learning arrangements, requirements and materials to serve our teaching aims best. Looking at different exposures of facilitating or teaching in virtual worlds, it seems to me that much depends on the circumstances, availability, accessibility and other aspects to make learning in virtual environments an outstanding experience worth to be followed. And in the following slides, I will show you examples of spaces used for language learning in Second Life, its benefits and pitfalls. This is a typical scenario of our project meeting of the university project, which regularly take place on AVALON Island. For a conference, this is an absolutely appropriate setting, like in a real-life conference, where it would not be possible, though, to meet regularly as people join in from different countries. A Portuguese colleague who had just recently set up a language course for her Portuguese class and had problems in her Portuguese environment because of griefers and massive sound issues and other technical problems, asked me to help out to set up the course in the space on AVALON. In order to overcome sound issues, she used Skype, Adobe Connect, and asked people to sit around this table in the conference room. She produced a slide on Adobe Connect, had all the sounds switched off there and no sound on Second Life, and asked the students questions about different sized people in the picture which had been posted on Adobe Connect. For me, a typical traditional physical classroom activity. I wondered why she bothered to get into Second Life at all, and when she did, why not think of a situation that would have been appropriate for the virtual learning environment. I think she would have been much better off to run the full session in Adobe Connect. What I'm getting at is that we need to adjust our materials and activities in virtual worlds to the environment in a way that it makes learning and teaching most effective and more beneficial than in other learning environments. Virtlantis Island is a good example for language training. It offers free language courses which take place in different areas, like the one on this slide, which was a session where newspaper clips were discussed in a relaxed round and atmosphere. People read and discussed news clips they received on note cards, a situation which could be carried out in a traditional physical course in a similar way. In my view, it's crucial for both traditional physical learning as well as virtual learning to give opportunities for informal learning where people do something together, where the target language is used and where people have fun, like riding a motorbike, sitting relaxed on donuts for a chat, or prepare a task, or play some instruments and have a picnic at a camping site. Stephen Collis, Director of Innovation, Northern Beaches Christian School in Sydney, showed in his YouTube video some practical examples from a school in Australia of using a virtual 3D environment for learning in high schools. He divides spaces into an informal, open-ended, undirected learning space and a structured, directed learning space. Stephen Collis showed an example of having his students dance while they were learning French, using the text chat to respond to tasks. I think his students were aged between 13 and 15, and they felt more relaxed in this way of learning, which he accounted as structured learning. He said that his students love the environment as it is engaging, which absolutely supports my findings. So motivation and engagement are key in both worlds. Steve Collis says that it is not the alternate tool for teaching, it's just a tool. I thought that some of you would take the opportunity to start dancing during this session, but nobody has done that so far. My Czech colleague at the University of Western Bohemia complained about the inactivity of her students in online learning on a Moodle course. So she decided to go into Second Life and have them build a bicycle in the sandbox. It demonstrated that the learning by doing effect proved well here. Students got engaged, had fun, collaborated and produced something they were proud of, and they used the target language. As a result of this event, they decided to meet more often in virtual worlds, which had been new to them. And again, this supports Steve Collins that you should look for alternative tools. If one is not working effectively, just use another tool. You will find a lot of spaces in virtual worlds that use replica of the real world, like museums, art galleries and cities like London, Paris, Arcachon, Rome, and of course also some German towns, which are a great resource when teaching German. It is an ideal way to engage students. Traveling to places and gather information about places in Germany which could not have been done in such an efficient way without great efforts and costs like in Second Life. Students had chosen the task traveling, so they received a description of important sites and buildings of the different places available in Second Life and could pick a place they wanted to travel to. And each student took the responsibility to guide the group to a specific place. That was in Munich, for example, like the old town hall or the marketplace, by finding the place and passing on information about the site using German according to their language ability. So this activity included the 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking and listening. And it was fun for all to ride through Munich on a bicycle, see the sights, getting lost at some stage, and have a virtual ice cream in a cafe to finish off with. Some other typical learning scenarios for language classes you will find in every course book are buying and selling, booking in at a hotel, traveling, checking in at the airport, just to name a few. Role plays and simulations are best to be carried out in virtual worlds. The top picture was taken from a Spanish course where the teacher rezzed an airport check-in scenario, where she had the students practice little dialogues from a note card first and then have them actually role-play the check-in. When looking for suitable filming scenes, I came across Miami Airport. Really fascinating. It looked so real, with all the check-in desks, the typical background noises, like a real-life airport. My colleagues and I met somebody there who actually owned a business lounge there and took us for a flight to Hollywood in his airplane. And this was so exciting, you wouldn't believe it. And it somehow felt so real. My daughter came into the room and was very surprised to see my excitement, shouting out loud, "Look, I'm flying to Hollywood in a real airplane in Second Life." The landing was quite spectacular, and in Hollywood we were welcomed by pilots and ground crew and were invited to have a look around to see other planes of different types and even fly with another one. And the pilot said shortly after takeoff, "Sorry, folks, we have run out of petrol. We'll have to let you off." And he landed again. I also noticed that some people made business there and they were selling flights, and some of them were working at airports in real life, and they also used it for simulations. Another very typical scenario at beginner's level is going shopping, as I said, and buying and selling. I have actually taken part in an Italian course for beginners in virtual worlds, and the tutor had us choose a dress for a colleague and explain why we thought that this specific outfit was more suitable than another one, practicing comparisons, making suggestions, and giving reason. At least everybody had to agree on the new outfit and then go to the changing room. It was fun and included the process of changing clothes in virtual worlds, which is not always easy. We had a great laugh, especially when I kept losing my pants as soon as I put on a shirt, and when I put the pants on I lost my shirt, and so I ended up walking around in trousers and a bra. You could hardly create such a situation in a traditional physical classroom, and hence virtual worlds become more realistic in a sense, practicing or making people fit for real-life situations. You can Rezzing Scenarios wherever this is suitable and whatever learning scenario you wish to implement, provided you have got the rights to Rezzing things, and this is usually in the sandbox area which educational islands normally provide. I've also seen, but not tried out with students myself, options for group and pair work that you can sit at a table with the partner and with a click you land in a nice atmospheric surrounding like a garden or cafe in the mountains or wherever, and you can move up and down to different floors or levels according to the task. Jim Blaskowicz of the University of California mentioned in the TEDx Digital Freedom, Virtual Reality, Avatars and Multiple Identities video an interesting facility in which group work took place. The group members changed ever so often and were mixed, and it worked like speed dating. Just thinking of how slow and time-consuming this could be in a traditional physical classroom. I think in virtual worlds, like in the physical classroom, you need a space you feel comfortable with and in, where you can go to on your own or with friends. I found my space on AVALON and I love it. I can go to my little room here where I can invite friends to and where I can try things out, res stuff, where I can make machinima. And it's close to Kamimo Island, the first place I came across with in virtual worlds. There's a little boat that takes you from one island to the other, so you need somewhere and something that makes you feel home, where you know some people, where you know what to expect. On this course, we were asked at the treasure hunt to make the University of Western England our home, and I think this was important, as this is the place where we meet and study together, and this gives a feeling of belonging, like in the real world. A colleague of mine found her special place where she reflects or invites her friends to on another island where we regularly meet. To summarize, when teaching in virtual worlds, task design, student participation, motivation, and student acquisition of information and learning outcome are key. Hence, you need to set up your course in a way that engages students, motivates them, and makes learning a valuable experience. Virtual worlds are suitable environments to enact scenario-based learning. The Otago Virtual Hospital, part of the OpenSim-based New Zealand Virtual World Grid, is one of such virtual worlds where medical students role-playing as junior doctors provide medical care to virtual patients in realistic scenarios. There are many virtual world grids using the learning by doing approach, enabling students to experiment in laboratories and other simulations. Vibe, the virtual island for biology education, is also a very good example of it. I asked at the beginning what makes virtual learning different than physical classroom learning. I think virtual learning is not much different compared to traditional teaching or learning. I think in a way we can learn from virtual environments how ideally a traditional physical course could be arranged to encourage learning. However, and whatever we design, we have to consider the learner and adapt our task design according to students' preferences, learning styles and interests. So coming back to the original question, why create desks and PowerPoint presentations in a world where anything is possible, the answer is that we need to feel secure with our space and feel at home, and we try to create it according to the world we want it to be from our real-life experiences. As regards to why we create buildings with roofs and walls where it never rains or gets cold is similar. I could do without bumping into walls or roofs, but it is how people feel home with. The little recognizable detail of our real physical life. I would compare this world with childhood experiences. As a child, we permanently replicate our lives, like playing with dolls and dolls' houses and McQueen trains and cars and Lego. It is important, though, to realize that virtual worlds are a tool to enhance learning and should be used if they prove to be advantageous to other environments. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to a lively discussion.